It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind where people hurry through errands with their collars turned up and their heads down. The fluorescent lights of the neighborhood supermarket felt like a small oasis of warmth and chatter against the gray outside. In the checkout line, an elderly woman in a faded cardigan and scuffed shoes shuffled forward, placing her modest items on the belt: bread, a carton of milk, some apples, a tin of tea. She smiled at the cashier, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her worn wallet. The cashier rang up the total. The woman swiped her card once, twice, then frowned. The screen blinked. Transaction declined. She searched her bag for change, her face flushing. Behind her, a young man in jeans and a hoodie stepped forward. "I've got it," he said softly, sliding his card toward the cashier before she could protest. "Oh, no, I couldn't," she began, but he shook his head, smiling gently. "It's okay. Just pay it forward someday." The woman's eyes glistened. She clutched the bag of groceries to her chest, murmuring a heartfelt thank you. She wanted to ask his name, to remember this stranger who had stepped in without hesitation, but before she could, he was already heading toward the automatic doors. Outside, rain spattered his hood as he disappeared into the crowd. The woman stood for a moment, groceries in hand, feeling as if the world had just grown a little warmer. That evening, she brewed a cup of tea from the tin she had nearly left behind, each sip steeped in gratitude. She didn't know his name, but she knew the kindness he had shown her, and she promised herself she would pass it on. The sun had just begun to rise over the small town, painting the horizon in streaks of gold and pink. At the local drive-through coffee shop, the morning rush had started, a steady line of cars, engines humming, sleepy faces behind fogged-up windows. Inside her car, Emma sat at the speaker, ordering her usual medium latte. She was running late for work, her mind buzzing with the day's to-do list. When she reached the window, the barista grinned and handed her drink over. "You're all set," the barista said. Emma frowned slightly. "I haven't paid yet." The barista's grin widened. "The guy ahead of you covered it. Said to wish you a great day." Emma felt a small warmth bloom in her chest. She glanced ahead, catching only a glimpse of a silver sedan turning out of the lot. Without much thought, she pulled out her card. "Then I'll pay for the car behind me." The barista's eyes sparkled. "Pay it forward, huh? I love when that happens." And so it began. The woman in the SUV behind Emma paid for the couple in the hatchback. The couple paid for the young man in a work van. The van driver paid for the school teacher in a compact car. Word spread quickly among the staff. The chain kept going. One after another, strangers decided to brighten someone else's morning. The baristas counted. 10 cars, 15, 20. 2 hours later, the total stood at 31 acts of kindness in a row. Nobody knew who had started it, or who would end it. But for that morning, a simple cup of coffee had become more than caffeine. It was proof that kindness, like cream in coffee, could swirl through a community and leave it just a little sweeter. The afternoon traffic was crawling along the busy main road when Jake, a 17-year-old high schooler, spotted something unusual. At first, he thought it was a stray shadow darting between cars. Then he saw it clearly. A small golden retriever, its fur matted with mud, eyes wide with panic. The dog was weaving dangerously close to the lanes, every honk sending it skittering in another direction. Jake's heart kicked into overdrive. Without a second thought, he pulled his bike to the curb, hopped off, and started jogging after it. "Hey, buddy, easy, easy," he called, his voice low and calm. The dog bolted down a side street. Jake followed, ignoring the drizzle that had started to fall, his sneakers slapping against wet pavement. For nearly half an hour, he trailed the dog through alleys, over grassy patches, and across 2 more streets. Slowly, the dog began to tire. Jake crouched down on the sidewalk, keeping his distance, and rummaged in his backpack. He pulled out the half sandwich he'd packed for himself. He tore off a piece, tossing it gently toward the dog. The retriever sniffed, crept closer, and took it. Inch by inch, Jake coaxed the frightened animal closer until, at last, it pressed its muddy head against his hand. A faded collar hung loosely around its neck, with a tag. The name read, Bailey, and a phone number. Minutes later, a minivan screeched to a halt nearby. A middle-aged woman leapt out, tears streaming, calling, "Bailey." The dog bounded to her, tail wagging wildly. She hugged Jake, her voice shaking. I thought I'd never see him again. Jake just smiled, brushing mud off his jeans. Glad I could help. He rode home that evening soaked and tired, but with the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd saved someone's best friend. The library was quiet except for the soft rustle of pages and the occasional thud of a book being reshelved. It was Saturday morning, and the children's section was alive with hushed excitement, tiny feet pattering across the carpet, little voices asking their parents to read, just one more. In the far corner, Mrs. Hensley, the librarian, was shelving a row of picture books when she noticed something unusual. Tucked between two brightly illustrated covers was a plain white envelope. Curious, she pulled it out. On the front, in neat handwriting, were the words, "For you." Yes, you. She opened it to find a crisp $20 bill and a small card that read, "You are loved. Buy yourself a treat today." At first, she thought it had been left by mistake, until she found another envelope 2 shelves over. And another near the beanbag reading nook. By the time she'd finished scanning the room, she'd counted 12 envelopes hidden in different books, each containing the same message and a $20 bill. Throughout the day, children and parents discovered them. A shy little boy clutched his envelope to his chest, grinning at his mother. A teenage girl picked one out of a fantasy novel and whispered, "Is this for real?" Nobody knew who had done it. There were no cameras in that part of the library, and no one had seen anyone planting the envelopes. But word spread quickly among the regulars, and soon the library was buzzing with warmth. The mystery benefactor remained anonymous, but their kindness rippled outward. That day, the library wasn't just a place for stories on paper, it became a place where kindness itself had been tucked quietly between the pages, waiting to be found. The rain came suddenly, not a gentle drizzle, but a full, drumming downpour that sent pedestrians scattering for shelter. At the crowded bus stop, people huddled together under the narrow overhang, clutching bags and backpacks to keep them dry. Among them stood a young man in a suit, his phone pressed to his ear, and a college student with a backpack, shifting from foot to foot. Near the edge was an older woman in a light blouse, already soaked through, shivering as the cold water slid down her sleeves. A few steps away, a woman in a yellow raincoat walked briskly along the sidewalk, her large black umbrella shielding her from the storm. She glanced toward the bus stop and paused. Her eyes fell on the shivering woman, clutching a plastic shopping bag that did little to keep her belongings dry. Without hesitation, the woman in the raincoat stepped forward. "Here," she said, holding out the umbrella. The older woman blinked in surprise. "Oh, I can't take that." "You can," the stranger said with a smile, pressing the handle gently into her hand. "Stay dry." Before the woman could even ask for her name, the stranger stepped back into the rain, hood pulled up now, walking away without looking back. The umbrella's black canopy seemed to glow in the gray downpour, a small island of warmth and safety. When the bus arrived minutes later, the older woman climbed aboard, still holding the umbrella like something precious. She looked out the window, searching for the yellow raincoat, but saw only a blur of raindrops on glass. She never learned who the umbrella angel was, but for the rest of the day, she carried more than just dry clothes. She carried the reminder that kindness doesn't always wait for sunny skies.